Algerian President Abdelaziz Bouteflika has left his post after several weeks of protests demanding his resignation. According to the Algerian state agency APS, the demonstrators reacted to the declaration by staging a massive street party. On the streets of the capital of Algeria, the sound of car horns. One of the protesters thanked Allah in the national television, according to Reuters. Bouteflika said earlier that he would try to ensure continuity of government institutions. As expected, the transitional government for the next 3 months, before the election, headed by the Speaker of the Upper House of Parliament, Abdelkader Ben Salem. Shortly before the resignation of Bouteflika, the Chief of Staff of the Algerian Army, Ahmed Salah Gaid, demanded to declare the president unable to perform his duties and remove him from office. "We have to find a way out of this crisis immediately, but within the framework of the Constitution," he said, speaking on television on March 26. He suggested the use of Article 102 of the Constitution, which allows the Constitutional Council of the country to declare the office of president is vacant, if the president is not able to perform their duties. A few weeks prior to this, Bouteflika has announced that he intends to run for another presidential term. Shortly thereafter in Algeria began Massachusetts protests. After a few weeks of protests, Bouteflika refused to go for a 5th term. But protesters at the time have demanded the reform of the entire political system. The ruling party, National Liberation Front, has pledged to hold a national conference to discuss reform and early elections, in which Bouteflika has pledged not to participate. In 2011, during the Arab Spring, in the country held protests over unemployment and rising food prices. Bouteflika lifted the state of emergency, which lasted in this country for nearly 19 years in the war with the Islamists, fulfilling the main demand of the opposition. After suffering a stroke, the president was able to win the election, after which he disbanded the intelligence service, replacing many of the staff personally loyal to him people. During protests injured at least 50 people, at least 45 were detained in the capital. Police used water cannons to disperse the students. Such Massachusetts protests in the country were held for the first time since Bouteflika came to power in 1999. Protests are organized in social networks, among the protesters many young people. Among young people most of the unemployed, more than 30% of Algerians are under 30 years are unemployed. Abdelaziz Bouteflika has been in power in the country for 20 years. He belongs to the higher military caste of Algerian society. Bouteflika is a veteran of the War of Independence against France 1956-1962 years, during which it has gained a huge reputation. Bouteflika came to power with the support of the military after the civil war between the military government and Islamists in the 1990s and was considered the unifier of the country. In Algeria it has been implemented several major infrastructure projects. In the country established a wide network of tram, was constructed of cheap social housing. Small businesses have received loans, which are then simply written off. With the decline in oil prices, the country began to experience financial difficulties. The budget cannot pay for large social projects, and the country is again increasing unemployment.